Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got adult harem with all girls? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Fire Style Tarot for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. So are you really gonna be staying here in Karakura town, Nell-chan? Asked the well-endowed orange-haired teen. Yep, since there is nothing left for me in Hueco Mundo, I decided to come here, responded the green-haired woman with a sad smile. But what will you do here? The Soul Society isn't gonna like the idea of an espada living here, the dark-skinned golden-eyed goddess pointed out while sipping her milkshake. Don't worry, Yaruchi-san, I got that covered already, Nell told her with a big childlike grin. How about your living arrangements? A small dark-haired girl asked her. That's easy, Rukia-chan, I'm gonna go stay with Ichi-kun, Nell said, beaming with extreme happiness. Everything got quiet around the table of four women as one made her bold statement. Orihime nervously twiddled her finger. Rukia stared at her like she was insane, and Yoruichi donned a perverted smile. Nell-chan, does Kurosaki-kun know you're going to be staying with him? Orihime asked, still twiddling her fingers. I don't think so, actually, he doesn't even know I'm here yet, ha ha ha, Nell said as she laughed at the looks on her friends' faces. I love it, ha ha ha, you know what, we should go shopping, a girl has to have clothes, you know, Yoruichi said, rising from her seat and walking towards the exit. Are you guys coming or not, sheesh? Yoruichi yelled back as she reached the door. Oh yeah, I'm coming, what about you two? Nell asked the two girls who were still sitting there shocked. I guess I'll go so I can help you pick out your clothes, Orihime said as rose from her seat with smile. I'll go as well, Cammy knows this is gonna end up a mess anyway. Wait a minute, but I'm living with Ichigo, Rukia shouted when it finally dawned on her. But the other girls were too busy discussing what would look good on Nell. Kurosaki residence. Ichigo felt a very cold chill run down his spine, which made him stop what he was doing. Is something wrong, Ichigo? Chad asked his friend. Nah, I just got a weird feeling, that's all, let's continue. I summoned my dark magician girl in defense mode, then place two face-down cards and end my turn. I'll win this time, Chad, just you wait, hee, thought the orange-haired duelist. This is pointless, can't we do something else besides play this? Yuria asked while pushing his glasses up. No, now shut the hell up, quit whining, and play your turn, Ichigo yelled at the Quincy. Fine, I'll sacrifice my 3 monsters to summon my obelisk the Tormentor, Yuria said with an evil glint in his eye. Mother! When the hell did he get something like that? Ichigo thought while Yuria finished his turn. My turn, I sacrifice my 3 monsters to summon Slifer the Sky Dragon, Chad roared, and Ichigo started to sweat. This some bullshit, where the hell did they get these cards from? Oh shit, I'm gonna lose again, I hate this damn game, Ichigo thought as Chad destroyed his dark magician girl. Back with the girls, Orihime was watching her 3 companions grab clothes that would look great on Nell. Then a sad smile crept across her as she watched Nell try on her first outfit. They all have a strong bond with Kurosaki-kun. Yoruichi-san is his teacher, so I'm sure she has a special place in his heart. Rukia probably has the strongest bond with him, they've been through so much together. And then there's Nell-chan. Even she has a strong bond forming with Kurosaki-kun, and now along with Rukia she'll be living with him. But I've caused him the most pain in the world because I went to Hueco Mundo, Orihime thought sadly. Flashback. Jinikimaru and Kanin Tosen looked around at all the fallen espada. They and Aizen were the only ones left, but some time ago, when Ichigo appeared and began to decimate their remaining forces, Aizen disappeared. He left us, he could save himself, sighs, how troublesome. Oh well, we can't go out without a fight now, can we? Jin asked his partner as they watched Ichigo make his way towards them. Ichigo pulled his hollow mask over face and Flash stepped toward them. Before he could swing Zangetsu, he heard Aizen's voice. Ichigo, Kurosaki. Aizen called from his place high in the air. Ichigo looked up at him, and his widened at what he saw along with his friends. There in Aizen's grip was a battered and bloody Karen. Karen! Ichigo shouted. His hollow mask broke away, as did his concentration. Jin had taken that chance to shoot Shinso through his. You have 5 seconds to surrender or I kill your dear little sister, Aizen said with the coldest grin. That's Karen opened her eyes and saw her brother's wide eyes staring up at them. Ichigo, don't surrender to him, Karen shouted as tears began to brim at the edge of her eyes. 5. Karen, I have you're my sister, I can't just. Ichigo was torn between the world and his sister. 4. How could stoop so low, Aizen? Toshiro mumbled. Despite what he said, he'd grown quite fond of Karen. 3. Karen-chan, Orihime said with tears sliding down her cheeks. 2. Alright. I surrender. Ichigo said, holding back his tears and dropping Zangetsu. Ichigo, no. I don't want to be the cause of all the innocent lives he'll take, please don't give for me. Karen told her brother, tears rolling down her face. 1. Ichigo watched his eyes and stabbed his Zanpakuto through her. He then twisted the blade and let her fall to the ground. Ichigo grabbed Zangetsu and went to catch Karen. He was just 2 steps away from her when Aizen fired a Kido blast to set young girl ablaze. She hit the ground with a sickening thud. Ichi, I love you. Karen strained out with last of her life. Flashback, and tears were now cascading down Orihime's face as she remembered what happened to her friend. She didn't even notice the other girls come up to her asking her what's wrong. Orihime! Rukia shouted, finally getting her attention. Oh, what is it, Rukia? Orihime asked. Ignore the weird stares they gave her. Is something wrong? You were just staring off into space crying. Rukia told her. No, I'm fine really, but I'm kinda tired. If it's okay with you guys, I'm gonna head home. Orihime said, wiping away her tears. Yes, sure, but are you sure you're alright? Rukia asked her one more time. Yeah, I'm fine, I'll see you tomorrow at school. Orihime her and ran out of the store. She'll be fine, just give her some time now. Let's buy these clothes and head to Ichigo's place. Back at the Kurosaki residence, Ichigo lost the duel against Chad and Yuryu, and after a quick lunch they went home. He now staring at a picture of him and Karen they took when they were young. Karen, he whispered. He was brought out of his thoughts when he heard knocking on the door. Yeah, who is it? He asked, not looking away from his picture. Ichigo, you have some visitors. Yuzu told him from the other side of the door. Then send them in, G's. He said, crossing his arms. He heard the door open and close, then turned to see Nell, Rukia, and Yoruichi standing there. He looked on as Yoruichi sat on his bed crossing her legs. Rukia hopped up into her room/closet, and Nell on his lap. What the hell? Ichigo asked, staring at the green-haired women on his lap. So Ichikun, it's been a while now, how you been? Nell asked the substitute Soul Reaper. Ichigo eyed all 3 women suspiciously as they all seemed to be focusing in on him. I've been terrible. Yuryu and Chad keep beating me in duels. Ichigo said, eyeing Yoruichi and her perverted smile. Okay, what's going on here? Why are 3 here? Why is Nell here and not Hueco Mundo? And the hell are you smiling about? The young man yelled, jumping up and pointing at Yoruichi. Nell fell backwards on her ass with a thud and Yoruichi burst out laughing while Rukia let out a chuckle. Basically, Nell left Hueco Mundo and came here, so she needs a place to stay. Rukia explained, letting the info sink into his head. Oh hell no! Ichigo roared. Before he could protest anymore, he was met by 3 sets of fake tears and googly eyes. What the stop that she can stay, he said, surrendering. 3 yays filled his room and they began to unpack Nell's things. Sighs, did you hear that, old man? We got another occupant of the house. Ichigo said out loud, knowing his father was listening on the other side of the door. After getting Nell situated, Yoruichi said her goodbyes and went on her way back to Kisuke's. Nell back came from the shower with a light green nightie that hugged her curves perfectly and Kahn on her shoulder. Ichigo sat up to say something but stopped when he saw what she had on. Are you seriously wearing that to bed? Ichigo said, blushing. Yoruichi said it would be comfortable, and she was right. You don't think it looks good? She asked with a pout. I didn't say that. Hey wait, why is Kahn with you? Ichigo asked, glaring at the stuffed toy. Oh, he want take a shower with me, so I let him. You know he was really dirty. Nell said as Ichigo stared at her like she was insane. That's it, I'm going to bed. Hit the light, will ya? He said, turning over towards the wall. The light went out, and he closed his eyes only to shoot open 2 seconds later. Nell crawled into the bed and snuggled into his back with Kahn nestled in between them. Sighs, this is heaven. Kahn thought and drifted into a blissful slumber. What the hell are you? Ichigo was silenced by Nell shushing him. Relax, Ichikun, and get some rest. With that, Nell s her arm around his waist and nodded off. Mother, this some bullshit. Ichigo nodded off into dreamland as well with a cherry red blush of his face. Ichigo was awakened by the sound of someone whimpering behind him. He slowly opened his eyes, giving a second or 2 to fully wake up before he sat up and looked down to see Kahn's worried face. Something is wrong with her, Ichigo said, the stuffed toy. Nell was shaking violently while tears cascaded down her face. Pesh Dundo Chaka, Nell whimpered out in her sleep. Rukia opened her closet door, wondering what all the noise was about. Her answer came when she noticed Nell's condition. What's wrong with her? The tiny Shinigami asked. Suddenly Nell's eyes shot open and she sat up screaming. Everyone's eyes were wide and their ears were covered at the sudden outburst. After she regained her composure, she looked around and saw 6 wide eyes staring at her. Are you okay? Kahn asked the former espada. Why were you calling for Pesh and Dando Chaka? Ichigo asked with a serious expression. Nell kept quiet, but her tears remained flowing from her eyes. Nell, you have to tell us what wrong so we can help you, Rukia told her. It had started after the war with Aiz and Team Pesh and Dando Chaka were trying to get me to regain my adult form along with my memories. That's when this strange Arankar appeared. He just stood there with this enormous killing intent. Dando Chaka started questioning him, asking why he was here and what did he want. But he didn't answer. Instead, he began to slowly walk closer to us. He drew his Zanpakuto and finally he spoke. He told us he needed to get stronger really fast, and to do so he needed to kill as many hollows as possible, Nell explained sadly. Then he killed Dando Chaka and Pesh, didn't he? Ichigo speculated while gripping the sheets. Nell nodded as she pulled her knees up to her. But he didn't stop there. He turned and looked at me with this crazed grin and began to devour their lifeless bodies, Nell said, and she broke out in sobs. Rukia sat on the bed, then put her arm around the heartbroken woman and pulled her into a comforting hug. Even Kahn gave her a rare non-perverted hug for comfort. Sniff, the good thing is because of the bastard's actions I was able to regain my original form, thus how I avenged Pesh and Dando Chaka. I just wish they were here to see what they tried to achieve for so long, Nell said with a sad smile. Ichigo was known for his dislike of seeing his friends hurt, but that didn't keep the others from being shocked when he joined the group hug to comfort Nell. I know we aren't as close to you like Pesh and Dando Chaka, but we'll make sure you're never alone again, he said with a grin that sent both girls into mushy land. After breakfast, see ya after school, Nell? Rukia said, leaving for school with Ichigo. After Nell made sure they were gone, she headed up to the room the three currently shared. She reached into a bag and pulled out a school uniform similar to Rukia's. Nei-chan, are you going to school too? Kahn asked as he watched her dress for school. Yep, I wanted to surprise them, so I waited till they left before I headed out. Hey Kankun, do you want to come with? Nell asked, turning to see stars in the stuffed toy's eyes. Can I really? Kahn asked. I don't see why not. Oh, but you can't talk while I'm in class K, she said with a wink. Yeah, let's go, Nei-chan, we're gonna be late, Kahn yelled, jumping into her book bag. At school. This is it. This is the day I talked to Kurosaki-kun about what to Karen-chan, thought a focused Orihime. Since they had returned from Hueco Mundo, neither had spoken to the other, and it unnerved the young teen to no end. She at least wanted to apologize to Ichigo about what happened, and today was the day she would. She nervously walked over to where Ichigo, Chad, and Yuri were discussing future duel plans. Kurosaki-kun, can we? Orihime was cut off by a familiar voice. I finally found you, Ichi-kun, said a smiling Nell. All four looked dumbfounded as Nell stood there in her school uniform. Nell frowned as she sat in Ichigo's lap. What's wrong, Ichi-kun? Aren't you happy to see me? Nell mock pouted as the rest of the class watched the two with interest. Sighs, there goes another pretty girl falling for Ichigo. Mizuiro sighed while he watched Kigo walk towards the orange and green-haired pair. Ichigo, now who is this? Why haven't you introduced me to her before? Kigo asked, seething in anger. Nell stood from Ichigo's lap and held her hand out for Kigo to shake. Hiya, I'm Nelio to Odelschwank, but you can just call me Nell, she said with a grin. Kigo and Nell began to converse about the various things about Ichigo that the other didn't know. She of course kept his Soul Reaper identity secret. Nell and Kurosaki-kun sure have gotten close. I wonder what happened between them last night. Orihime was brought out of her thoughts from the sound of Ichigo's voice. So what is that you wanted to ask me, Orihime? Ichigo asked her. Oh, I was wondering if we. Orihime was interrupted again by another person calling Ichigo. They both looked toward Rukia to see her holding up her spirit phone. Shit, Orihime, can we finish this later? We gotta, no problem, Ichigo said, running toward the door followed by Rukia. The ones that could watched as Rukia and Ichigo worked together to take down the two hollows that tried to attack Karakura High School. They once again proved how great a team they are, but it's only natural they'd work well together. They'd been fighting together since the beginning. Orihime thought sadly, and suddenly she didn't have the same enthusiasm she had earlier. After school, Orihime decided she would try once more to talk to Ichigo while they walked home. Crazy day, huh? Ichigo asked, looking forward. Yeah, it was, ha ha ha, Orihime said, laughing nervously. So what was it you wanted to ask me about? Asked the orange-haired Soul Reaper. Well, I was wondering if we, and for the third time today, Orihime was cut off. Ichigo, I need to see you now. Oh, Orihime, you don't mind, do you? Yorichi asked. No, go ahead, I'll talk to you tomorrow, Kurosaki-kun. Yes, sure thing, Orihime. He flashed her a smile, then shunput off with his teacher. Well, at least he's talking to me, sighs. Everyone has a close relationship with Kurosaki-kun but me, Orihime said to herself. Then an idea popped into her head. She would get close to Ichigo by going to one person who knows all about his secret ventures. At Urahara's shop. Hello, Urahara-san, are you in? Orihime called out. Miss Orihime, what can I do for today? Kisuke Urahara asked from behind his trademark fan. I was wondering, can you tell me about Kurosaki-kun and his secret training sessions? Orihime asked nervously. Why would you want to know that? Urahara asked, narrowing his eyes. Well, I kinda wanna understand Kurosaki-kun a little better so that I may form a strong bond with him as well, she said, looking up with a hopeful smile. Oh well, guess it can't be helped, follow me, I'll make us some tea. Kisuke beckoned, heading to the kitchen. 2 hours later. Kurosaki-kun has been through, but I won't stop now, this is my chance to get closer to him. Orihime thought, stealing her resolve once more. So Miss Orihime, now that you know what you wanted to know, I take it you'll be heading home now, Urahara said before sipping his tea. Actually, I decided I wanted to do some training, she said. Oh, and what are you looking to do? Kisuke asked before sipping some more tea. I want to do the training that Kurosaki-kun did to get his Soul Reaper power back after his first encounter with Byakuya-san, she said seriously. Urahara, on the other hand, choked on his tea when he heard this. Due to his coughing fits, his hat fell to the floor, and Orihime could see the shocked look in eyes. Hers, however, held their seriousness, and it was time she took matters into her own hands. Ichigo laid on his bed staring at his ceiling, Nell and Rukia asleep on each side of him. He thought back to when Nell had convinced Rukia to sleep with them a week ago. To say she was uncomfortable would be an understatement. She slept so close to the wall she could become part of it. The substitute Soul Reaper could tell having Nell around had Rukia loosening up a lot. Now she slept cuddled under Ichigo just like Nell did, and even Kahn changed a bit. He was still a perv, but only with Nell. Ichigo still didn't know why she let him, maybe she just likes the attention, he didn't know. But the real reason he was awake was because of Orihime. It had been 3 weeks since they talked on the way home that day, and the next day when he wanted to continue the talk she didn't come to school. Then a week passed, then 2 weeks, and now it's been 3 weeks but still no Orihime. He also noticed Yorichi hadn't been around since then as well, but that was common for her. He just hoped something didn't happen to her again. He didn't want to go through another loss like Karen. The young man thought back to the girls currently sleeping next to him. He was kinda getting used to sleeping with them. He actually looked forward to being with them after school. Maybe asking one of them out wouldn't be so bad, thinking about Tatsuki's suggestion. He sighed quietly as he closed his eyes and began drift into the slumbering world. Urahara's shop. Kisuke stared at the visage in front of him. Its white hollow mask had 2 red feather-like markings on each cheek, one above each eye, and 2 thin lines starting from the top of the mask that traveled down through the eyes to the bottom. Yellow and black eyes stared back before its mask broke away and returned to its previous human form. So what do you think? Does it all suit you like I think it does? Kisuke asked. The person he questioned just scowled at him before giving him a reply. Go to hell, and yeah, it does suit me. You know, if the Soul Society knew what you did, they'd come after you, said the person sheathing the sword they held, or actually their Zanpakuto. He's not worried. He's done worse than creating a Zanpakuto and a replica of Ichigo's soul badge. Yorichi said, walking over to them. So since your training is done, what do you plan to do now, Orihime? Kisuke asked, sheathing Benihime. Said girl looked at him before smiling evilly. Oh, nothing, just gonna cause a little trouble for a certain strawberry Shinigami, she said before walking away, going to get ready for school tomorrow. Yorichi felt a cold chill as those words left her, as did Kisuke. They were just good at hiding it. Kisuke, what the hell have you created? The goddess of Flash asked her friend. Kisuke's face looked serious until his childish nature kicked. I don't what you're talking about, ha ha ha. Urahara laughed, waving his fan at her. The next day, everyone was in the classroom waiting for school to start when she walked and sat at her desk. Nell's eyes widened as she went to greet her friend, of at least she thought that was her friend. Nell stared at Orihime's attire. Said girl wore her shirt like Ranjika did when she came to the world of living. A replica of her hair clip was in each ear. Her hair was done in a high ponytail, and her held a pink shine to them. She actually looked quite pretty when she thought about it. Everyone who knew Orihime's jaws dropped when they saw her. Before anyone could proceed with the questions and compliments, the bell for school rang and everyone took their seats. As the teacher began her instructions, Orihime let a dark smile grace her pink. Time for the show to begin, she thought. Right when their teacher was giving out the first assignment, she was rudely interrupted by Orihime. Hey Rukia, you got your memory replacement thing on you, don't you? Orihime asked as she stood from her seat while reaching for her soul badge. Miss Inoue, I'm trying to teach here. Her teacher pointed out. Tell someone who gives a damn K. She told her teacher with a sickening sweet voice. Well, Rukia, do you? She asked again. Yeah, but why? Orihime cut her off before she finished. Good, I'd get it ready if I were you. Orihime said, and she pressed her soul badge against her and transformed into her soul form. You see, when Urahara made her soul badge, he made it so her real body would be contained it, and not just lying around somewhere. So to her regular classmates, Orihime had disappeared, but to everyone else she was clear as day. What the Ichigo was confused as all hell right now. Kurosaki-kun, you might want to do the same unless you want to get killed. Orihime told her friend as she held her Zanpakuto. What are you talking about? I'm not fighting you. Ichigo yelled at her. Is that so? Maybe after this you'll do what I suggested. Orihime said before her Ryatsu exploded outwards, sending everyone backwards. What the hell is going on? Ichigo, just do it. Even I can tell this isn't the Orihime we knew. It's probably a hollow pretending to be her. Yuryu shouted at his friend. His eyes widened when Orihime appeared in front of him, smiling darkly. Sorry Quincy boy, but I am Orihime. She told him as she felt Ichigo's Ryatsu spike, indicating he transformed. There, I transformed. Are you happy? Ichigo was suddenly kicked out the window. Ichigo. Orihime, what the hell is wrong with you? Rukia yelled at the new Orihime. Hey onion head, zip it. Orihime said, and she jumped out the window. Was that a shunpa she did? Chad asked, looking at Yuryu, who was still a little shocked. I think it was, Nell said as they watched Ichigo block Orihime's sword strikes. Down with Orihime and Ichigo. Orihime abruptly stopped her attacks and jumped back, frowning at Ichigo. You're holding back, she noticed. Of course, why would I want to hurt you? You're too important to me. Ichigo told her, hoping to calm her down. Kurosaki sweetie, that's cute, but it won't stop me from kicking you ass. Reject, Koten Zanshuin. Orihime's Zanpakuto turned into a sword version of Tsubaki's attack. Ichigo could also see a faint orange glow around her, then that when it hit him, that was a release command. Orihime is that he could only stare with his jaw dropped, as did the rest of their friends. Yeah, it's my Zanpakuto, pretty nifty, don't you think? Hee. She laughed darkly. But I guess this still won't make you go all out against me, will it? You and everyone else still think I'm helpless. I bet while I was gone you hoped nothing had happened to me again, didn't you? The girl questioned him. Ichigo's thoughts from last night ran through his mind, and guilt crossed his face as he looked down. Orihime looked down while her bangs shadowed her eyes and a sad smile crossed her. That's what I thought, just so you know, after I beat you I don't want you to hate me, Bankai. With that, her spirit energy swirled around her while her friends watched with wide eyes. Did she say Bankai? Ichigo yelled. Everyone else was in complete shock at their friend's transformation. The smoke cleared and Orihime stood in an outfit similar to Ichigo's Bankai one. The differences were small but noticeable. The bottom of her haori wasn't tatted like his was. A long split ran up the back to her ass. Her haori was also white, unlike Ichigo's. Instead of hakama pants she wore skin white leather pants. White heeled boots adorned her feet. The splits in the front were the same as Ichigo's, though. Since she wasn't wearing anything under her haori, you could see the belly ring replica of her hair clip. And finally, like her soul badge, her Shun Rika was embroidered on the back of the haori. Koten Zanshuin Kiria. Orihime whispered, staring Ichigo in the eye as he activated his Bankai. You're still holding back, you bastard. Orihime shouted. What else do you want me to do? I think Bankai is considered not holding back, Ichigo yelled back until he remembered the last of his powers. Hell no, Orihime, I'm not using that against you. Ichigo said seriously. Back in the classroom, Rukia's eyes were wide as plates. She wants him to use his hollow mask on her, she said, and everyone jerked their heads in her direction. But why? Nell asked sadly. I don't like this, Yuri said, looking back to the fight. Well, maybe you just need a little encouragement, Kurosaki-kun. Orihime said while she slowly pulled her hand over her face as her hollow mask formed with each passing second. Everyone's eyes widened. Orihime laughed under her mask, and blood spilled from the shallow cut on Ichigo's arm. He looked up the sword that was slim like Zangetsu, but it was orange, almost see-through, and no chain at the end. Still don't want to fight me at full power, Kurosaki-kun? Orihime asked him, the hollow edge in her voice sent shivers down his body. She smiled when he pulled his mask over his face and swung Zangetsu full force. Having trained relentlessly with Kasuke and Yoruichi, she blocked the swing with ease, and countered with an attack none of them seen her do before. It was like her attack with Tsubaki, except it was smaller, more precise, and she fired it from her finger. Ichigo winced at the hole in his shoulder before he released his own counter. Getsuga Tens Ho! He yelled, firing the red and black energy at her. Orihime simply held up her hand and blocked the powerful spirit energy attack with her Kaiten Keshin. You won't beat me if you don't let go of your restraints, Kurosaki-kun, Orihime told him. Just as he was about to respond, blood exploded from numerous cuts on his body and his mask shattered. He stared into Orihime's yellow and black eyes with his own wide ones as he fell to his knees. Hayaka Valkyrie no Sudaraiki, she whispered, watching him fall. Orihime used Shuinpa and disappeared from his field of vision. Then Ichigo heard the sound of swords meeting behind him, and he turned to see Nell in her espada outfit blocking a possible death blow. Allow me to show you what a true hollow is capable of, Nell said with a cold glare. With their last exchange of words, the girls began their sword dance of anger. Sonito vs. Shunpa, Zanpakuto vs. Shun Shun Rika, and the classic while cliched good vs. evil. The rest of Karakura's protectors watched as crater after crater appeared on the ground and walls. Orihime swung Kiria, trying her best to decapitate Nell, but the former espada blocked her strike with ease and fire a Siro at the other girls. At such a close, Orihime took the full brunt of the Siro blast, and was shot at least 5 feet backwards. They all watched the smoke carefully for any sign of Orihime, and when it cleared they saw her standing with Kaiten Keshin in front of her. Like I told Kurosaki-kun, if you want to stop me, then you're gonna have to do more than those tiny spirit energy attacks, Orihime said, charging at Nell once more. Nell ducked under the kick aimed at her head and countered with an uppercut to Orihime's chin. The wizard spun with the momentum from Nell's attack and kicked the green-haired woman in the side. Next she followed up with her Hayaka Valkyrie no Sudaraiki, but Nell on the other hand dodged a good number of them. Nell winced at the cuts over body as she stood evading a sword strike while swinging her sword at the young girl's head. Orihime jumped back from Nell's attack and shot her in the leg with her Tsubaki needle technique. The orange-haired wizard narrowed her eyes at Nell as she came charging like the attack didn't faze her. Nell used her Sonito to create an afterimage to get behind Orihime and slash her across the back. Orihime growled, and with a turn she tried to cut Nell across her stomach. Nell managed to jump back with only a small scratch on her abdomen. The two females stood taking deep breaths and staring each other down. Then an idea formed in Nell's mind. She still had few tricks up her sleeve that could take Orihime down. So you say you're tired of those weak spirit energy attacks? Huh, well, I got one that'll rattle that empty head of yours. I hope this works, and if it does I'll be sure to thank him for teaching it to me later. Now here's a technique a friend taught me before I left Hueco. Mundo! Nell yelled out, gathering energy in her palm. Gran Ray Siro! Nell yelled, firing the blue-green Siro at Orihime, whose eyes widened. Oh shit, Ichigo thought to himself while he watched Orihime take the attack head-on. Now is my chance, Nell thought as she began to release Kamuza. Both Ichigo and Nell's eyes widened when they saw Orihime still standing, trying to catch her breath, and a large crack in Kaiten Keshin. Ichigo looked on in disbelief at Orihime's new powers. To him, she was a different person, which she was, of course. Then he heard something he hadn't heard since Hueco Mundo. Lanzador Verde! Ichigo watched as Nell launched Kamuza full speed at Orihime. No! Ichigo yelled. Orihime simply brought Kaiten Keshin up to block the oncoming lance, but to her surprise it pierced right through and drove her into the school wall. Ichigo could see Orihime's wide eyes as her mask shattered and she coughed up huge amounts of blood. Orihime listened to the crazed laughter in her head as her inner hollow became known. You want me to take over, Orihime-sama? Her hollow asked, hoping she could get out for a while. Pant, no, I won't lose to her. I refuse to be weak any longer, the young girl yelled out, releasing all her Ryatsu. Her spirit pressure brought Rukia and the others to their knees while Ichigo and Nell watched in anticipation. Orihime's wounds began to heal thanks to Shun Shun Rika. The orange glow from before intensified. 6 fairy-like wings manifested themselves on her back. 2 smaller wings appeared on each side of her head, and her hollow mask reappeared across her face. Koten Zanshuin, Valkyrie Kiria. Orihime began to gather spirit energy in her sword, but when she did this Ichigo noticed that one of her wings dispersed. Tsubaki Kiria no Kaze. Orihime fired a much larger version of Tsubaki with a little wind energy added at Nell, who for some reason couldn't move. Shit was all Nell could think before the attack hit. We gotta help them. Chad shouted, but Rukia protested, staring down at the smoke cloud. Hiya! The smoke began to swirl along with Ichigo's spirit energy. The familiar blue glow around Ichigo turned red and black while his hollow mask formed over his face. Finally! Orihime shouted as she charged toward Ichigo, who charged as well. Yuri used his Hirenraku to retrieve the unconscious Nell. When he laid her down, he noticed a cut on his upper arm. What the hell? The young Quincy thought, looking back at fight taking place down below. Tsubaki Kirya no Mizu. Ichigo batted the water-based technique aside only to see 3 more Orihime surrounding him. Tsubaki Kirya no Hai, Tsubaki Kirya no Kaminari, Tsubaki Kirya no Tsuchi. All 3 attacks came fast, but Ichigo was much faster, and used the colliding of all 3 attacks to take out all the Orihime clones. When he struck them, they faded away in orange particles. The Soul Reaper looked around carefully for the other wizard, but she was nowhere to be found. He found her when he looked up. She was standing on top of school with 1 wing left. She gathered her remaining spirit energy in her sword, and when her last wing dispersed, Kirya became enveloped with white light. Valkyrie sword no Hikari. She jumped from the roof, diving straight at Ichigo. Ichigo gathered energy in Zangetsu and jumped toward her, and they met with a bright explosion of white, red, and black. The energy collision. Orihime could feel Ichigo winning as he pushed her sword back. No, I won't lose to him. With the last of her energy, Orihime batted Zangetsu to the side and head-butted Ichigo, shattering both their masks. Back in the classroom. Are they alive? It's been 5 minutes and I haven't sensed anything yet, Yuri voiced while they watched the smoke dissipate. Down in the giant crater, they could see Ichigo laying unconscious with Orihime laying on top of him in the same state. Their friends let a heavy sigh out that they didn't know they were holding, and they jumped down to help the 2 slumbering wizards. Because they were so enthralled in the battle, they didn't know another set eyes had seen the whole thing from beginning to end. What the hell is going on here? Tatsuki thought while the group down below headed for Ichigo's place. Orihime's inner world. You kicked some major ass today, Orihime-sama. Her hollow yelled, jumping around. Orihime's inner hollow was a pale white child version of herself, so to the outside world they would look like mother and daughter. But I didn't win it, ending in a ing draw. She growled out. At least you didn't lose badly like you did against Kasukuen and Yorichan. Her hollow told her. I guess so, but Orihime looked to be in deep thought. Still thinking about how you're gonna apologize after nearly killing them? Asked the younger girl while she sat in Orihime's lap. Hell no, I was just testing my new abilities. It's not my fault they were too weak to fight without nearly getting killed. I still wanna apologize to him about Karen, because if I had this power back then maybe she wouldn't have died. Orihime explained. You're too overdramatic, said a voice from behind the tree that they were sitting against. Kirya! Her hollow yelled when the other woman stepped from behind the tree. Hey Ori, how's it going? She asked the chibi Orihime. Kirya had long white hair that reached her thighs, a bust smaller than Orihime's but still quite noticeable, piercing green eyes that would scare anyone, and she wore pink and white celestial armor. Guess what, Kirya? Orihime-sama almost beat Kurosaki-kun today! Ori yelled excitedly. Did she now? Kirya said with a smile. Don't give me that sly smile of yours in case you forget you lost to since you were technically in the battle as well. Orihime said, smirking as Kirya scowled at her mistress. Bite me, Kirya said, looking away. Ori, would you do the honors? Orihime told the young girl. Hi! Ori went over and bit Kirya on the thigh, bringing her out her thoughts. You little brat, come back here. Kirya began to chase Ori through the flower field that was Orihime's inner world. In the real world, Orihime snuggled into the warmth that she was enveloped in, then the warmth brought her closer. She was relishing in the contentment she felt lying there with a sense of security. Then something clicked. She opened her eyes the same time Ichigo's did, and they laid there staring at each other before Orihime spoke. Wow, Kurosaki, you're a perv, she said with a deadpan look. You're in my damn bed. Ichigo yelled back, wincing as a sharp pain shot through his head. Can you not yell? I kinda have a headache, you know, she said quietly and laid her head back down. Ichigo began to blush when he noticed their attire or lack thereof. Both were currently shirtless with bandages wrapped around their wounds. Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't headbutt people, then you wouldn't have a headache, Ichigo told her quietly, trying to keep the perverted images from forming in his head. Kurosaki, I'm sorry about Karen-chan. If I had been stronger back then maybe she wouldn't have died, Orihime said, looking at the red paint that now covered his walls. It's fine, I was weak back then too, so don't worry about it anymore, okay? Ichigo told her, forgetting about the perverted thoughts for a minute. Ichigo was caught off guard when he felt Orihime's against his. but he regained his composure and they were soon involved in a heated makeout session. I knew you were a perv, Orihime said with a seductive smile. Yeah, Ichigo smiled and gently flipped her so that he was on top. Kurosaki me, she whispered in his ear, sending chills down his spine. Orihime, maybe we shouldn't do this now, how about some other time? He asked her, hoping she would agree. Funny because I wasn't asking. Ichigo's eyes widened when he heard the familiar hollow edge in her voice. What the hell? The young Soul Reaper was now on his back, staring into Orihime's now yellow and black eyes. Hi, it's nice to finally meet you, she said in between yes as she made her way down his. You're her inner hollow. He stated, already know the answer. Well, aren't you smart? My name is Ori. Ichigo's face had a very confused look upon it when she told him this. Wait, you have a name? Do all inner hollows have a name? He asked, thinking about what his own inner hollow's name could be. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed his pants hit him in the face. Then realization struck him when he felt Ori's slender hand stroking his member. Not bad for a little boy. I think you'll be able to satisfy Orihime-sama to her heart's content with this bad boy. But Ichigo's red face turned blue as Ori gripped his member very ly. If you hurt Orihime-sama in any way, I will turn you into a little girl, you got it? Ichigo nodded quickly and he managed to squeak out a yes before she relinquished control back to her mistress. Orihime opened her eyes to find her hand wrapped around Ichigo's and him trying to catch his breath. Wow, just what did little Ori do to the big bad Ichigo? She asked with mock sympathy. That's when she noticed the red hand print around his shaft. Orihime smiled, then lowered her head and placed a soft on his. Now Ichigo was going into overdrive. Not even Nell or Yoruichi did this to him, and they were the most perverted girls he knew. Don't worry, Kurosaki-kun, I'll protect you from the mean old hollow, she said, placing another on his now throbbing member. Just as she was about to engulf him, they both felt their friend's spirit energies enter the house. Shit, this isn't gonna end well for me, Ichigo thought. Those bimbos are back already. Size looks like we'll cut our fun short for today, Orihime thought. Hey, where are my pants, or at least my boxers? Ichigo desperately whispered. Who gives a flying shit, just lay down and relax, Orihime told him, then place a quick on his cheek. Downstairs. Let's go see if those two troublemakers are woke yet, Yoruichi said with a heavy sigh. Then the group nodded and started their trek up the stairs to Ichigo's room. When they opened the door, they noticed a few things were off. 1. The room was hot as hell. 2. Clothes were all across the floor. And 3. Orihime was cuddled up with Ichigo. Which was funny because when they left her last, she was in Yuzu's room. What the hell? Nell said, staring in disbelief at the sight before her. You perverted bastard, taking advantage of an injured girl is unforgivable, Rukia yelled, and she jumped to kick Ichigo in the head to wake him up. Ichigo, on the other hand, started to sweat profusely because he knew what would come next. To his surprise, though, the pain never came, and he opened his eyes to see Orihime holding Rukia's foot. Then she threw the small girl backwards. She then fell on Nell, and they both landed on the ground in a painful heap. You two are so rude, can't you see people are trying to relax here, Orihime said with a frown. Why are you in Ichikun's bed? Nell shouted. I would like to know that as well, considering we left you in Yuzu's bed before we left, Rukia chimed in. And where are your clothes? Yoruichi smiled perversely, looking at the blushing Ichigo laying behind Orihime. Yuzu's room? Ori, did you have anything to do with me being in Kurosaki's bed? Orihime asked her inner hollow. All she got in return was a snicker. Then Ori busted out laughing. I had no control over how I got here, but I do know that it is none of your business what we were doing. By the way, Yoruichi, how was the hollow hunt? Orihime asked the goddess of Flash while ignoring the other two. How did you know? Yoruichi asked. Oh, please, with as much spirit pressure and energy we were releasing, it was like a dinner bell for the hollows, Orihime said, laying back down and cuddling against Ichigo. While they talked about the hollow situation, Ichigo was pulled into his own inner world. Hey King, long time no see. Ichigo turned to his inner hollow and Zangetsu standing there. You again, what do you want this time? Ichigo asked with a scowl. Oh, don't get your panties in a bunch, I'm not going after your soul anymore. After watching how the girl with the big and her hollow coexist, it got me thinking. Besides, every time I try to take over your body and soul, I succeed for like 30 seconds. Then you make some big motivational speech and I'm back to being the damn horse, his hollow told him. So what do you want then? Ichigo asked suspiciously. Hey, I have a name, and it's Higo, so stop calling me you. Higo told the orange-haired teen. We noticed that something is troubling you and wondered if we could assist you, Zangetsu said. Ichigo thought about it for a minute, then he decided, what the hell, let's give it a try. Well, it's about the girls. I like all them, but not in that greedy kinda way. Each of them is, I don't know, it's like. Arg, this is too hard. Ichigo yelled, frustrated at his dilemma. Each of them holds a special place in your heart, but you don't know which one you want to have all of your heart. Does that sum it up? Zangetsu asked with smirk. Oh well, that's easy, just date all of them. Higo said, laughing. Hell no, that would make me the bad guy. Ichigo shouted. No, dumbass, I mean sit them all down and tell them how you feel. Then wait for them to say they feel the same, and ask them how would they feel about sharing you. Higo explained to him. Maybe that could work. Hey, thanks, you know, too should think about getting a job in therapy. Ichigo said with a big-ass grin. But I king, next time that Ori comes out, why don't you let me out for a while, so I can show her good time, if you know what mean. Higo said with a hopeful gleam in his eyes. I'll think about it, Higo, how's that? Ichigo told him. Hey, as long as it ain't a no, I'll take it. Now you better get back, I think something's up. Higo said, then returned Ichigo to the real world. Back in the real world, Ichigo came to and saw Toshiro and Ranjika standing in the middle of his room. Hey Toshiro, what are you two doing here? Ichigo asked, sitting up on his elbows. That's Captain Hitsugaya to you, and you, Orihime, Yuryu, Chad, Rukia, and Nell have been summoned to the Soul Society by Head Captain Yamamoto. The young captain stated while folding his arms. Alright, let me get some clothes on then. I wonder what the old geezer could want now, Ichigo said silently. Soul Society, Captain's meeting. Ichigo Kurosaki, we are glad you came, and I can assure that this won't be a waste of your time. Now, after a discussion with all the captains and lieutenants, we have come to the conclusion that it'll be good to have you and your friends as permanent allies. But as you know, you are still among the living, so joining us here in the Soul Society would be out of the question. Someone also suggested having you replace one of the missing captains, but again out of the question because of the previous issue. So I come to you with this proposal. How would like to have your own squad in the world of the living? Yamamoto asked the younger Soul Reaper. Ichigo was shocked. Whenever the old geezer spoke with him, it always ended with him being told what he can and can't do because of his substitute status. Now here he was offering him a chance to be in charge of his own squad. Ichigo smiled, then gave his answer. Well, that's all good, old man, but as you know, I don't have a squad to start with. I only have the people who accompanied me. Before Ichigo could finish, Yamamoto gave his solution. I am well aware that you can't have a squad with so little warriors. That is why I'm giving you a choice of any one from the 13 court guard squads to join you. You may choose up to 3 captains if that is your wish, and the rest holds no limit. Yamamoto said seriously. Soifan then took this time to interrupt. Head Captain, this is not what we discussed. How can you even think about allowing this? Soifan shouted. Soifan, you will do well to remember your place. And as for my decision, Ichigo has proven he is stronger than most of you numerous times in the past. He infiltrated the Soul Society with 2 humans, a Quincy, and he lived to tell it. He has defeated our strongest captains. He defeated the Bount leader Korea, saved the Shininju and defeated the Dark Ones, and done much more while making you look like academy students. So I think he has earned his worth. Does anyone object to these achievements? Then let us continue. Finished Yamamoto. Everyone from Karakura was beyond shocked, especially Ichigo, and if he were gonna do this, he knew who would be choosing. Head Captain, how about we do it this way? I choose 3 captains, and they are allowed to bring up to 2 subordinates with them. That sound good to you? Ichigo asked the elder. If that is your wish. Yamamoto told him. Then fist off, I choose Kenpachi Zaraki. Ichigo said, smiling. Oh Ichigo, you shouldn't have. Kenpachi said sarcastically. Kenpachi removed his Captain Haori, then handed it to the Yamamoto, and went to stand next to Ichigo. Next I choose Toshiro Hitsugaya. Ichigo said, and Toshiro did the same as Kenpachi. I refuse. Not only do I have clan duties here, I generally don't like you. Byakuya told him blankly. Byakuya. I told Kurosaki to pick anyone he wanted, and that includes you as well. Your clan duties can be handled from the world of the living. Now if Kurosaki has chosen you, then you will honor my decision and accompany him. Lectured the head captain. With that, Byakuya sighed and reluctantly discarded his captain's Haori, and went to stand by his new captain, who was grinning his ass off. Who are the 2 subordinates that'll accompany you? Yamamoto asked the 3 ex-captains. Yachiru and Yumichika will be coming with me, and by the way, why don't you have Ikiku take over as captain? He's already achieved Bankai, so the rest should be no problem. Kenpachi said, a grin. I'll strongly consider it, Kenpachi. And what about you, Toshiro? Old man Yama asked the youngest captain of the Soul Society. As it stands, Ranjaku Matsumoto will accompany me for now. My second choice isn't quite ready yet. When she is done, I'll have her join me later. Toshiro explained. Fair enough. And lastly, what about you, Byakuya? Asked the head captain. Rinji Abarai is my first choice. My second choice, like Toshiro's, isn't ready and will join me later as well. Byakuya stated with an unusual smile. Kurosaki, are these choices to your liking? Yama asked the substitute Soul Reaper. Ichigo nodded. Then the old man told him he had one more thing left to give him. Shunsui and Jushiro stood in front of him, then presented him with 2 armfuls of forms he had to fill out. Ichigo had Chad and Kenpachi carry them back to the gate. Once they gathered their final members, they made their way back to the world of the living, which would be the start of a new era for Karakura Town. 2 weeks later, Ichigo was currently playing poker with Zangetsu and Higo in his inner world. So Ichigo, don't you think it's about time you talked to the girls about the whole dating thing? Higo asked, smiling at the hand he had. Yeah, I've been thinking about it lately, and since we got our new comm all set up, I guess I'll talk to them about it now. Oh yeah, by the way, I got a royal flush, Ichigo said with a smile. Son of a... Zangetsu and Higo said, throwing their cards in the air. Hey guys, I gotta go. Think I sense the girls coming in now, so we'll play again later, Ichigo said as he went back to reality. Just as he said, the girls were standing in front of his desk. So I trust the hollow problem in Sector 14 is taken care of? Ichigo asked, noticing their tattered clothing. Yeah, we totally kicked ass, Nell shouted. That's good to hear, but I have something to talk to you guys about, so have a seat, said the orange-haired captain. So what is it you want to talk about, Kurosaki sweetie? Orihime asked her captain. Well, okay, it's like this, I sorta have a little crush on you girls. But I don't know if I could choose just one and risk hurting everyone else. I know I'm sounding pretty selfish, right? And Ichigo was cut off by something even he didn't see coming. I call first date, Orihime yelled, shooting up from her chair. No fair, Orihime, we talked about this, and we all agreed that Rukia would get him first, Nell told her. Well, that's too bad. I call him first, and hell, while I'm at it, I might as well him first too, said the Wizard Beauty. That comment jump-started a catfight in the middle of his office that caused more clothing to be ripped. Ichigo just sat there dumbfounded until someone's shirt fell over his face. Enough! Ichigo yelled, releasing his spirit pressure. Everyone with the exception of Yorichi and Orihime were brought to their knees. You mean to tell me that you 4 had already discussed this shit? Yes, Nell said with a smile. I mean, we seen this coming a week ago, and we know you aren't the type to hurt others. So we knew you wouldn't choose one of us, and that's when we came up with the idea of sharing you, Rukia explained. Ichigo could hear Higo and Zangetsu laughing their asses off in the back of his mind. But for the time being, he'd let it slide. While he was thinking of some sort of plan, the girls had come to an agreement and left Orihime and Ichigo alone. When the others were gone, Orihime let a sly smirk slip across her pink. She went and sat on Ichigo's lap and brought him out of his thinking with a deep, Where did everyone else go? Ichigo asked. They left so we can have our date, so I'm gonna go get ready, and I expect you to be ready by 7 o'clock. Now go get ready, or I'll go tell Kenpachi that you challenged him to an all-out death match, Orihime told him. Okay, geez, you don't have to threaten me, damn. You just make sure you're ready by 7 o'clock, Ichigo said with a smirk. Just as Orihime left to go get ready, Toshiro and Byakuya walked in. Captain, our last members have arrived. Do you want it? Toshiro was cut off by his captains. Sorry guys, I got a date to get ready for, so I'll see them when I get back. By the way, Nell's in charge while I'm gone, Ichigo told them. Then Flash stepped to his room. The former captains stood there pale as ghosts when they heard their lieutenant would be in charge again. Last time Ichigo left Nell in charge, Byakuya pissed her off with his cold attitude, and she made him fight a group of octopus-like hollows ass. When Ichigo had returned, they told him what happened, and he busted out laughing. I'm staying in my room until Ichigo returns. I hate that psychotic, Byakuya told the shorter Soul Reaper. Who's a psychotic? Nell asked sweetly from behind them. Both males froze in their place as both tried to figure out why they didn't sense her. Toshiro turned and bowed to Byakuya. Byakuya Kichiki, may you rest in peace. After his final goodbye, Toshiro ran for the hills. Well, in his case, he ran to Ranjaku's room. Gee, look at that, it's great ing day outside, Byakuya said nervously. Later, at around 7 o'clock, Ichigo waited impatiently for Orihime at the front gate of the calm. How the hell can she tell me not to be late when she can't get here on time herself? Ichigo asked. No, in particular. You wouldn't be talking about now, would Kurosaki sweetie? Orihime said as Flash next to him. Ichigo turned towards and his jaw dropped at what she was wearing. She wore a black sleeveless mid-drift top that showed a nice amount of her cleavage, jeans with a black butterfly on the left leg. Her hair was done up a cute bun with a bang falling over her right eye, and finally her held an unusual shine to them that made Ichigo lick his without knowing. Are you gonna stand there and ogle me all night or are we gonna go out? Orihime asked him, even though she relishing in the fact that she could have that effect on him. Oh yeah, where do you wanna head to first? Ichigo asked his orange date for the evening as they walked down the street. Well, since it's summer, how about we go get some ice cream? That sound good to you? She said with a sweet smile. Ichigo blushed and nodded his head slowly, and she began to pull towards the ice cream shop. After they got their frozen treats, the two wizards sat on a bench in the park. They laughed and talked about everything that had happened since they became a squad. The old couple sitting on the adjacent bench smiling happily at the younger couple. Then some ice cream fell onto Orihime's and both males began to get nosebleed at the thoughts that ran through their heads. Oh no, I got ice cream on me. Ichigo, can you hand me a napkin? Orihime asked. We didn't get any, so I guess you're gonna be sticky until we find a bathroom. Ichigo said, holding back a laugh. He was shocked when Orihime straddled his lap with a sly, seductive smirk on her. Then why don't you lick me clean unless you want a sticky date? Orihime whispered and brought his head to her voluptuous bosom. Ichigo felt like some unknown force was controlling him as he began to lap the melted ice cream from Orihime's. Oh baby, that's what I'm talking about. Hey Milyana, let's have ice cream for dessert tonight. The old man told his wife with a wink. Gregory, you old perverted fool, you know those days for us has passed and gone. His wife told him. I beg to differ, Sugar Puff, take a look. Gregory said, motioning downward. My, I haven't seen that in ages. If that's what it takes to get you up, we're buying some porn on the way home. Come on, Gregory, it's party time. Milyana said and began dragging her husband home. Are you as creeped out as I am? Ichigo asked the girl on his lap. More than you know, come on, let's go. She said, then went to the park's restroom to clean the rest of the ice cream off herself. Dinner took a turn for the worst when the waitress hit on Ichigo. When she brought them the bill, she left her number on the receipt. This proved to be the reason why Orihime broke the poor girl's fingers. Now they were walking back home to the calm, and they ended up in the park from earlier. Orihime ran and jumped up onto the fountain gazing at the full moon. Her date stepped up next to her and joined her as they stood in a comfortable silence. So did you really have to break her fingers? Ichigo finally asked. As she didn't need them, besides I don't want her masturbating to the thought of you and her together, said Orihime, still looking at the moon. You have the wildest imagination I've ever encountered, Ichigo said with a deadpan look. Orihime turned to him and wrapped her arms around his neck, then gave him a deep that had his head spinning. The girl then relinquished his with a sweet smile. But you still love me, so it doesn't matter, Orihime told her, blushing. Captain. They were about to start round 2, but they had to jump apart to avoid an incoming Zero Blast. Both of them activated their combat passes and entered their soul forms. After enough threatening, Kisuke, Ichigo finally got his combat pass modified like Orihime's. Who the hell dares to interrupt my date with Kurosaki? Orihime shouted, gripping her Zanpakuto in her hand. Ichigo stood glaring at the figure with his new captain's Haori dancing in the wind. Instead of a number embroidered on the back like the other captains, Ichigo had Karakura going down the back of his Haori. In the light of the moon, the two wizards could see an Arrancar grinning like a madman. Orihime just scoffed as if he was trash, and this caught Ichigo's attention. Orihime, what's wrong? Ichigo asked, not taking his eyes off the hollow. This bastard is no stronger than you were when you first achieved Bankai. Ichigo's eyes hardened when he heard this because he knew how strong he was back then. He could easily take this chump down, but he'd let Orihime handle it. Ichigo, if you don't mind, I'll take this bastard out, Orihime told him, activating her Bankai. Orihime jumped towards the Arrancar and swung Kiria downwards, but the Arrancar blocked and the force sent him to the ground below. The Arrancar stood up with a smile. Next he did something that made Ichigo's and Orihime's eyes widen. Their attacker turned his Zanpakuto upside down and dropped it into the ground. Bankai, scatter, Senbenzakura Kagyoshi, he said calmly, and waves of black petal blades came flying at Orihime. Due to being shocked, she got hit by the full brunt of the attack. Ichigo was about to jump in to help until he felt her spirit energy spike. She had donned her hollow mask, and with the quickness only a few could perform, she beheaded the annoying hollow. When they returned to their human forms, they both felt a little uneasy. That was Byakuin's Bankai, Orihime stated. Yeah, I know, I don't like this shit. But what's bothering me is not how he got it, more so who else powers have they copied. Ichigo said. Orihime nodded and turned towards home. Come on, we have to get back to the calm and let everyone else know what's up. Orihime told him, then both began running back home. One thought ran through Ichigo's head: if any of the other captains' powers have been copied, then they're screwed. Everyone was in shock at what Ichigo and Orihime had reported to them. The thought of more Espadas arriving was scary enough, but now it's also a possibility that they'll have someone's Zanpakuto powers. The thing is, I don't think they've mastered the powers yet. Even he possessed Byakuya's Bankai, it wasn't as strong as the original. So we should strike before they have a chance to master our powers. Nell, Rukia, I want you to send word to the Soul Society about what's up. Yorichi, see if Hat and Clogs can get a gate to Hueco Mundo open in the next month. Byakuya, Toshiro, and Kenpachi, I want you three to help polish everyone else's skills, because it's a possibility that we're going back to Hueco Mundo. Now everyone, let's move, shouted Ichigo as he gave everyone their orders. The new captain took a deep breath and laid back in his chair. He began smiling when he felt Orihime ing on his neck, teasing a sensitive spot that she discovered. And what are my orders, Captain Kurosaki? She asked in a sultry voice. Well, technically, since our date isn't over, I guess we could have a little fun. He told her with a grin, then placed a chaste on her thin. Man, our captain sure is freaky. I mean, who makes out in front of their subordinates? Said a voice that made both Ichigo and Orihime stop what they were doing. The two orange-haired teens slowly looked towards the door with wide eyes. There, standing in the doorway, was the last of Ichigo's squad. KK Karen? Orihime stuttered out. Decked out in Soul Reaper clothing stood Ichigo's younger sister, and next to her stood their mother Masaki Kurosaki. And Mom? Ichigo asked, not believing his eyes. Hello, sweetie, it's been too long since I held my baby boy. Can I at least get a hug? Ichigo performed the fastest flash in his life as he was in his mother's arms in the blink of an eye. Grabbing Karen in the group hug, he held them as he could. After her shock passed, Orihime smiled, knowing that now her captain's heart was complete again. She opened her cell phone, then dialed a number. Hello, this Orihime. I think you should come to the calm. It has to do with your family. With that, she hung up, and 2 seconds later Isshin came bursting through the door with Yuzu thrown over shoulder. What is it? Where's Ichigo? What happened to him? Isshin cried out. Dad, turn around. Yuzu told him just before she started crying. Why, what's Masaki Karen? Isshin dropped his youngest daughter and did the same as Ichigo. Lucky for Yuzu, Orihime caught and ran to join in the family reunion. For the rest of the night, the Kurosaki family stayed up catching up. While they talked and laughed, emotional scars were also being healed. It was probably just after midnight when Masaki noticed Orihime in her son's lap. I think your date's a little worn out, sweetheart, Masaki told Ichigo with a smile. Ichigo looked down to see Orihime asleep in his arms with a serene smile on her face. Ichigo smiled himself and stood up, carrying Orihime bridal style. I'll be back, guys, it seems I have to put someone to bed, he said, and started off towards Orihime's room. He pushed her door open, then put her down gently on her queen-size bed. Just as he about stand back up to leave, her arms and around his neck. Please don't go, Kurosaki-kun, stay with me, she said in her sleep. Ichigo sighed and climbed into the bed with her lying down behind her. He wrapped his arm around her waist. Then the two drifted into a deep slumber together, not aware of the audience at the door. Isshin closed the door with a smile and looked at his wife with had tears in her eyes. They are so cute together. I hate that I've missed so much of my children's lives, Masaki said, looking at the floor. But you're here now, and unless you plan on leaving again, you have all the time in the world to make it up to them, said Isshin as he hugged his wife. The next day, Orihime woke enveloped in a warmth that made her feel safe, like nothing could touch. She turned over and found the source of her new security was Ichigo. She smiled and began to wake him up with a soft starting from his to his. Hell it, that's how you're gonna wake me up. Maybe I should sleep in here more often, Ichigo said, yawning. Yeah, maybe you should, but next time we'll lose the clothing, she said, getting up and heading to her bathroom for a shower. These girls are gonna kill me one day, Ichigo said as walked to his own bathroom. He took a hot shower, then finished with a cool rinse to wake his body up. Finishing up the rest of his morning duties, the orange-haired young man walked back into his room, and suddenly he was tackled onto his king-size bed. Ichigo, it's time for our date, yelled his green-haired lieutenant. Nell, get off, at least let me get dressed first. Just as he said those words, she yanked his towel off, threw somewhere in his room. Oh my, Ichigo, it's so big, that's at least 6 inches. I wonder how big it'll be when it's hard, Nell said, then began to stroke his member. Ichigo began to get nervous. What if someone walked in? What if his mother or sister walked in? Then Ichigo felt something warm and engulf him. He looked down to see Nell sucking him off. Nell, stop, we can't groan, we can't do this here. Ichigo tried to tell her, but it was no use. When Nell looked up at him, Ichigo saw something in her eyes that made him think. Sadness, pain, regret. Why does she feel this way? No way, she thinks I'm gonna choose Orihime because I slept in her room. Sighs, this is why I didn't want to choose one of them. Thought Ichigo as he came to a decision. Before he could come, Ichigo flipped Nell on her back and began to whisper in her ear. Nell, I'm sorry, me and Orihime only slept, that's it, I'll do anything you want so I can make it up to you, said Ichigo with a soft voice. When Nell heard his confession, she felt a weight lift from her heart, and she smiled. She wrapped her arms around his neck, then whispered her response in his ear. I want you to finish what we started, if that's okay with you. Ichigo looked into her eyes and saw hope. The hope that he would say yes. He then leaned down and gave her that made her toes curl and lit a fire in her belly. If that's what you want, said Ichigo with a warm smile, and took off the red dress she was wearing. Since she wasn't wearing a bra, he didn't have to worry about it getting in the way. Staring at her neck, he placed light yes down to her right. Taking the hardened nub in his mouth, he used his tongue to tease it while pinched her left. He reciprocated the same method on her left as he pinched her right one. Come on, Ichigo, I know you're virgin, but at least don't let it show too much, Higo said in his mind. Here, try this move on her, and watch the results, Higo said, and sent a mental example to Ichigo. Ichigo started to suck on her, then began to rub her southern through her light green panties. Like Higo said, Nell became to whimper as she grinded into his hand. Good, now don't lose focus, I want you to do this next, Higo said, then sent him another example. A escaped Nell's mouth when she felt Ichigo nip her pink and insert a finger into slit. He used his thumb to toy with her and nip at her other. Nell's S got louder when he accidentally found her G-spot. Ha ha ha, great, now that spot you just hit, I want you to insert another finger and show no mercy. Also, I want you to do this, Higo said, and sent him one final example. She let out a small whine when he stopped his action on her S. A muffled scream was heard when he took her in his mouth and used his 2 fingers to assault her G-spot. Ichigo sped his action up while her breathing did the same. Using his teeth to lightly hold her in place, he attacked it with his tongue. He used his free hand to massage one of her, and his fingers moved in and out of her, not forgetting to hit that spot. He inner muscles leaned around his fingers and her juices poured out. Not giving her a chance to recover, Ichigo positioned himself at her entrance. He looked at her to see if she was ready, and she nodded. Wasting no more time, he easily slid into her pussy. Ichigo groaned lowly as her nest engulfed him more and more. Nell, on the other hand, still being sensitive from her, released an audible scream. Outside the door. Damn, they're really doing it, Ranjika said. Everyone was gathered outside Ichigo's door listening to what was going on in there. Rukia, if you plan on doing that, make sure I'm not here first, Byakuya said blankly. Brother, growled a blushing Rukia, and she kicked him in the shin. Ah, goddamn midget, Byakuya said through his teeth while he held his throbbing shin. Lucky, Orihime said under her as she glared at the door. Back. Ichigo was looking at the door, then a mischievous grin appeared on his. Nell suddenly found herself face down, ass up, and her captain began to drill into her from behind. The spectators on the outside noticed the increase in volume, and their blushes became redder. The young first-timer could feel himself coming to the end of his rope and tried to pull out. And Nell, I'm gonna come, Ichigo told her as he tried to pull out again, but Nell's legs kept him from doing so. Ichigo Kurosaki, don't you dare pull out, I want you to come and nowhere else, she shouted, then started to move with him. And Nell groaned, I'm coming, Ichigo yelled as he exploded her. Feeling his hot erupt, her Nell came again for the second time. They laid there in each other's arms with satisfied grins on their faces. The audience on the outside stood there with jaws dropped and red faces. It's a good put her on those birth control pills when she first got here, Yorichi said with soft laugh. Just as the two lovers were wandering off into dreamland, the room began to get cold. It got to the point everything except them was frosted, and they could see their breaths. Then they both heard the cause of the problem. Bankai, Daiguren Hyarinmaru, dance, Sodi no Shiryuki. Then his room exploded in black ice and snow, and when the others opened the door, they were floored by an intense spirit pressure. Even Yorichi, Kisuk, and the former captains were brought to the ground. Standing on one of the ice spikes stood an angry Ichigo with his hollow mask on, and standing on another spike stood Nell wearing one on Ichigo's t-shirts. But what shocked them was the skull that was normally sat atop of her head was now being worn like a mask. Both Captain and Lieutenant glared at the two Arancars with furious yellow and black eyes. You two mothers interrupted me and Ichigo in snuggle time. For that you will die, she said with a serious cold voice. Ichigo's sweat dropped. Snuggle time, really? Well, she might have regained her adult body and mind, but she's a kid at heart. Being caught up in his thoughts, Ichigo didn't notice the Arankar appear behind him. Before he could block the strike, he was stabbed in the side, and Hairimura's eyes started to cover his body. Ichigo. The Arankars blocked Nell's path to Ichigo, then began to attack her. The Arankar, using Toshiro's powers, jumped back, then his spirit energy spiked. Two clones made of ice form on either side of him. Nell was then surrounded on all sides by the Arankars, while the others were still trying to recover from the pressure that held them in place. Toshiro, look at the hollow with your P powers. He doesn't have the ice flowers, so he hasn't completed mastering Hairimura yet, Renji pointed out. Toshiro's eyes were wide when he saw this. No, it's the opposite. The ice flowers show my time limit of how long I can hold my Bankai. Realization hit Renji like a ton of bricks. So in other words, he's mastered Hairimura. Nell blocked two killing blows from the clones, and missed the original use Sonito to get behind her. The others could only look on with wide eyes as he charged from behind, poised for the killing blow. Inches from her death, a gunshot rang throughout the calm. The Hairimura-wielding imposter faded into nothing along with his clones. Don't you dare touch my Aniki, you stupid bastards! Yelled a young boy that none of them recognized. The boy standing on the roof of the calm looked no older than Jinta, maybe even younger. His hair was messy and auburn brown. He also had the back tied in a loose ponytail. He wore a simple long-sleeve white shirt with a short royal blue vest over it. Blue jeans with a white lion's head printed on the left leg covered his short legs. Finally, he wore a pair of dark blue steel-toe boots with a pistol in each hand. The pistol in his right hand was white while the pistol in his left hand was black. Who are you, kid? Nell asked as she appeared next to the pistol-wielding child. No time for that, Aniki, he's coming, the boy said as they watched the Arankar with Rukia's powers charge at them. The boy raised his right pistol and aimed at the Arankar's head, and next to him Nell raised her left hand and charged up a Zero. Go to hell, you fake-ass bastard, said the blue-eyed boy. What he said? Nell chimed in, and soon as he was close enough they unleashed their attacks. The child's Ryatsu bullet fused with Nell's Grand Ray Zero and obliterated the copycat Arankar. You think you've won, but you haven't. We were just the final prototypes. Master Zentoku has already created the next generation of espadas, and they've mastered their chosen Zanpakutos, the Arankar said as he faded into the wind. The boy holstered his weapons and jumped down next to Ichigo, with Nell following close behind him. When they reached him, Orihime was almost done healing him, then Nell laid his head on her lap. You dumb ass, why is it that you can never come out of a fight unscathed? Next time I'm not gonna heal your ass, I'll just let you die, Orihime scolded him after she finished healing him. Her gaze softened, then she knelt down next to him and placed a soft on his. Don't scare us like that again, we'd probably be lost without you, Orihime told him with tears threatening to escape from her eyes. I'm sorry, I won't do it again, Ichigo told him, then sat up and eyed them both. So are you gonna tell us who you are? He asked, looking at the young boy, as did everyone else. Geez, Aniki, I thought by now you'd be able to recognize my spirit energy. At least now I won't have to rely on using your body to have fun. All the ladies will love my new body, even I, though I'm a kid now, the boy boasted with a wide grin. I know that attitude anywhere, so where'd you get the body from, Kahn? Ichigo asked as he stood up. Well, I had Urahara make me one because I was tired of being your sister's little play toy, Kahn told him, and shuddered at the thought of being dressed up in a dress. So what are you gonna do now that you got a body? Rukia asked the once small annoyance. I actually want to join you guys. I figured since you'll be fighting the new espadas soon, you'll need a strong fighter like me around to help you, Kahn said, puffing out his. Then, as captain of the Karakura Protection Squad, let me be the first to welcome you aboard. Now let's get to training, people. We have a big battle ahead of us. This time I want us all to come back alive, so let's begin, Ichigo told his squad. Elsewhere in the depths of Hueco Mundo, are they ready yet, Zentoku? Asked a cold voice from the shadows. The man known as Zentoku turned towards the other and smiled. Then suddenly 10 Arankars appeared in the room. The man stepped out of shadows with an insane grin on his face. He eyed his army with a blood spark in his eyes. Why don't you introduce yourselves to your new master? Zentoku told them. I am Espada ten Itaki Satoru, and I wield the powers of Kenpachi Zaraki, Itaki said as he bowed. Itaki wore an outfit much like the former 10th Espada Yami Realgo, except Itaki wasn't as big. He looked like a high school student with long blood-red hair and black eyes. His hollow fragment ran down the sides of his head like sideburns while making a bridge across his nose. Hi there, I'm Espada 9 Minami Del Rao, and I have the powers of Ranjaku Matsumoto, Minami said with a flirtatious smile. Minami wore a sleeveless midriff, with gloves that ran up to her elbow. She also wore a miniskirt and boots that ran up to her knees. Her sky blue hair reached down to her shoulders and pink outlined her purple eyes. Her hollow fragment were like earmuffs that connected over the top of her head. Espada 8 Ryanaki Kyoto's I possess Mayuri Kuratsuchi's power, Ryanaki said emotionlessly. He wore an outfit that was similar to Ulquiorra's. His black hair was slicked back into a thick braid. His cold dead eyes glared at the world with pure hatred. His hollow fragment covered the lower half of his face like a ninja. Hiya, I'm Espada 7 Tsuko Muijetsu, and I got him Jushiro Yukate's power, Tsuko said happily. The young girl looked no older than Ichiro, but she wasn't an Espada for nothing. She wore a white Shinigami outfit with her blonde hair done up in 2 pigtails. Her hollow fragment framed her black eyes like glasses. Yo, I'm Espada 6 Kuko Muijetsu, and I have got Shunsui Kairaku's power, said the young boy while he draped his arm around his twin sister's shoulders. He wore a vest with a wristband on each wrist and hakama pants. His hair and eyes matched his sister's perfectly, so one would be stupid to say they weren't twins. His hollow fragment framed his eyes like goggles. Hello there, I'm Espada 5 Goryokyo, I possess Soifan's power, said the tall slim man. He wore a long-sleeved top with the left sleeve cut off and hakama pants. The tall male had light green spiked hair and light blue eyes. His hollow fragment was simply 3 dots above his left eye that looked like piercing. I'm the 4 Espada Inazaka, and I have Rinji Aburai's power, said the chubby male. He wore similar to the fat Arankar that went with Grimjow to Karakura town that one night. He was bald with 1 purple eye and 1 green eye. His hollow fragment created a circle around his shiny dome. Espada 3, the name is Ferredo Quinto, and I possess the powers of Kisuke Urahara, said the dark-skinned man. He wore an outfit like Tozen's except without the visor. He tied his white dreads into a high loose ponytail with 1 dread falling over his right eye. His hollow fragment made a large cross in the middle of his face. Espada 2, they call me Anatemuru, I possess Genryosai Yamamoto's power, stated the shorter male. He wore no top but had gauntlets around both his forearms with hakama pants. He had a black mohawk and black eyes. He also had piercings in his ears, nose, and lip. His hollow fragment formed 2 stripes that ran next to his mohawk. Espada 1, I go by Ella Hayatsu, I possess the power of Ichigo Kurosaki, the big Ed woman said with a gentle smile. She wore a strapless bra covered with a long button-up coat that was buttoned all the way up to a slit in front and back. Her bubblegum pink hair was pulled into a curly ponytail on the right side of her head. Her hollow fragment was not visible, so what it looked like was a mystery. Professor Zentoku, you've done now with these 10 warriors. I can crush the Soul Society and that green hair that escaped my grasp. Where is she located now, Zentoku? The man asked with an evil grin. She is located in the world of the living Karakura town master in Hueco, Zentoku told the man who turned back towards the shadows. I want you all to do one final training. I want you all to create and perfect new techniques using your new powers. You will be fighting against opponents with the same powers as you, and they aren't dumb to lose to their own techniques. At least this way we'll guarantee our victory, so I'll give you 2 months, then we'll kill them all. With that said, Enrico vanished back into the shadows. You've heard Master Enrico, go start you training now, all of you go on git. Zentoku ordered them. They disappeared then reappeared in a large open area. It kinda looked like a coliseum. Man, I think that Enrico is kinda weird, Kuko said with his hands folded behind his head. Yes, I would have to agree with Kuko, something about him seems off, Ryanaki stated with arms in his pockets. Well, I think he's cute in that dominate kinda way. He looked like he could throw me on the bed and me all night long. Minami Ed, you are such a Minami, you'll anything with a. Itaki told her with disgust. Say what you want, Itaki, but I know one thing I wouldn't you. She sneered, then turned and walked away with a sway in her. I don't see why we have to fight anyway. I mean, I'm glad we don't have to eat souls anymore, but I just don't get it, Tsuko said as she held her knees up to her. The young girl then felt spirit pressure bearing down on her. She looked up to see Anatemeru standing over her with a crazed grin. Listen here, you little brat, you shouldn't be questioning why we fight as long we get to do it. Maybe I should try my new techniques out on you. And he was cut when a huge burst of spirit pressure brought him and everyone else down to the floor. Every espada below 5 was flat out on the floor gasping for air, while everyone else was brought to their knees. Anatemeru turned towards the source of the pressure to see Ella bursting with Ryatsu. You listen here, sorry son of a, if you ever lay even one finger on that child again, I will personally end your miserable ing existence. Do I make myself clear? Ella threatened him calmly when he shook his head, and she felt he had enough suffering. She released her pressure. She walked over and picked up the 2 children and went to lay them down in the room they shared. When she returned, everyone was just about breathing normally again. I'm sorry about that, everyone. Now let's begin our final training, Ella said, and they each began to practice their individual techniques. Inuzuka leaned over and whispered to Furedo. Just think, that's only 10% of her power. Imagine what 100% would be like. They both shuddered, then went back to training while a figure watched them from the shadows. 2 months went by fast, and Enrico waited in the main hall for his new soldiers. As if on Q9 of the Espadas, when he noticed his top fighter was missing, he began grinding his teeth. Where the hell is Ella? Enrico growled out. I think she is already in her chamber, Hueco told the growling man who sat on his throne. Fine, now you all know what we planned. You leave not one of those bastards alive, Enrico said with vile gleam in his eyes. Head to your chambers and I shall go and retrieve your opponents, Enrico said, then vanished into the shadows. Is Ella really in her chamber already? Suko asked her older brother. The rest of the Espadas directed their attention to the young hollow as if waiting for an answer. Hueco simply turned and walked off to his chamber where he would wait for his first victim. Karakura Town. Ichigo was laying on the roof of his newly repaired calm when a gargantua opened up in the sky. Enrico stepped out, and his eyes widened at what awaited him. Down on the roof was Ichigo's entire squad just sitting there waiting on him. You knew I was coming, Enrico stated, already knowing the obvious answer. Yes, so are you gonna lead the way to Hueco Mundo, or do we have to find our own ride there? Ichigo asked with eyes still closed. What makes you think? Enrico's speech was cut short when Nell lifted him in the air by his neck. How are you still alive? I know I pierced your heart with my lance, Nell said with malice in her voice that rivaled his own. Enrico smirked, then disappeared from her grip only to reappear next to newly opened gargantua. Once he ran at the squad below, took that as a sign to follow him. Everyone jumped into the gargantua and it closed behind them. When they exited, Ichigo noticed that they were in a circle room with 10 doorways. Anybody feeling a little déjà vu here? Ichigo asked, thinking about the last time they came to Hueco Mundo. The only difference this time around was that each doorway had a number above it. Alright everyone, these are espadas we're about to fight, so I want everyone to divide into teams, Ichigo instructed his squad. Me and Chad will take 10, Renji said, and once Ichigo nodded, the 3 of them took their leave. Masaki, Rukia, and myself will handle 9, Toshiro stated, then they were off. Me and Yuria will take on the 8th one, Ranjika said as she dragged Yuria down the 8th corridor. Yuichiro and me will get 7, Karen said, and Ichigo reluctantly let her go. Well, seeing as how I don't need any help, I'll take down the 6th bastard, Kahn said arrogantly, then walk off to his opponent. I call dibs on 5, Kenpachi said with grin, and proceeded towards his opponent. 4 was all Byakuya said as he stepped away. I'll take number 3, Ichigo, Yorichi said, and ran off down the corridor. Only 2 left, so that means I'm taking the 2nd strongest, Orihime said as she began walking off. Suddenly she was yanked back into Ichigo's arms, and he gave her a deep and loving, "Stay alive, Orihime," he whispered in her ear. Then she took off towards her target. Ichigo turned towards his lieutenant, and they both raced off towards the strongest espada, in Chamber 10. Well, this is pretty plain, it's just a plain old circle arena, Renji complained. Maybe you shouldn't be complaining about that, Chad told him. Itaki appeared before the 2 with a smile before he drew his Zanpakuto. Where the hell did he come from? Renji said as he drew his blade as well. Chad also activated his powers and readied himself for the espada to strike. Renji noticed that Itaki's Zanpakuto looked strangely familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd seen it. I see you've noticed my Zanpakuto. If you haven't figured it out yet, I have the powers of Kenpachi Zaraki, Itaki said with a smirk while Renji's eyes widened. Renji, what's wrong? Chad asked. This is gonna be a difficult fight, mainly because no one in the entire Soul Society know what Zaraki's Zanpakuto is capable of, not even Zaraki himself, Renji told while he tried to steel his nerves. You'll have to excuse me, I don't really like to talk a lot, so I'll just finish this quickly. I hope you're okay with that, Rise Kazafujin. A strong wind blew through the arena as Itaki released his shuriken. A giant double-edged rested in his hands, but Renji could still feel his Ryatsu increasing. Disappear into the furious winds, Bankai Akito Kazafujin. Itaki yelled out, and his Ryatsu threw Chad and Renji backwards into the far wall. Ouch, I guess that's to be expected from Zaraki's Zanpakuto. Oh shit. Renji now stared at Itaki holding the same claymore, and a humongous dragon made of black winds. What the hell is that? Chad yelled as he noticed the dragon. Chad, we can't let this drag on, we have to take him out now. Bankai, Hihio Zabumaru. After he released his Bankai as well, both Chad and Renji charged at Itaki. Elsewhere in Chamber 9, what the hell going on there? Is no way she should be able to counter my Harem, Toshiro said with sweat dripping off his face. He looked over to where Masaki was healing a badly injured Rukia. She had charged in at Minami thinking she could easily handle Ranjika's powers, but she didn't count on her summoning actual ash cats, which almost tore her to pieces. This is getting real bad real quick, looks like I'll have to do it. Toshiro began to glow with an icy aura. His eyes started to glow as well. Bankai, Daiguren Harem. The entire arena became covered in ice as Toshiro stood in his newly mastered Bankai. His ice flowers were no longer present. He now had a dragon's head curled around his left arm, which ended with a second sword made of ice in his hand. Ice encased his torso in an elegant battle armor. A shogun helmet made from ice encased his head, and ice now covered more of legs. It's a good thing I put that barrier up, if we probably would have been frozen solid. Masaki thought with heavy sigh. I hope you can hold on for a little while longer, Toshiro. She said out loud, then went back to healing Rukia. Bankai! Yelled a desperate and bloody Minami, and her Ryatsu burst forth from her body. Toshiro, who stood there unfazed, just smiled as the huge burst of Ryatsu died down. So I get to see Ranjika's Bankai before her, this should fun. Toshiro thought as the smoke cleared up. Minami was now crouched down on all fours with the ash covering her in a cat-like bodysuit. Piercing yellow glared at the former 10th squad captain through the remaining dust. Heiniko Yusunki. With a growl, she then disappeared from Toshiro's view. Minami appeared behind him and slashed at his head, but before she could strike, she was smacked away by his tail. Masaki watched helplessly as Toshiro struggled to defend against the agile feline. She clawed furiously at his ice armor, hoping that to cut him at least once. Toshiro's attacking and defensive power increased dramatically with his newly mastered Bankai, but his speed took a severe blow, which was causing him struggle against Minami. Her speed had to at least tripled from before, and now it was starting to annoy him. Finally, after many cuts and slashes, Minami managed to draw blood from the ice captain. Toshiro. Masaki was torn between helping the young man or healing her son's girlfriend. Masaki, I'm fine now, you can go and help Toshiro now, Rukia said with a weak smile. What? Rukia, are you sure? Masaki asked, still worried about the young girl's health. Trust me, I'll be alright now, go aid Toshiro, Rukia told her. Very well then, rise and destroy Zentetsu-sen. Masaki's power sent a warm yet disturbing sensation throughout the entire frozen area. Chamber 8's battle. Look like he's finally released his Bankai Yuryu, Ranjika said with a big grin. No need to worry, I've fought against Mayuri's Bankai before, and I've seen it in action more than twice. We have the advantage here, so don't worry, Ranjiku, Yuryu said. Then swords suddenly shot up from the ground. The two of them jumped up just in time to avoid being turned into pincushions. But they were caught off guard when swords came down from the ceiling as well. Shit! This is not good, Yuri thought as the blades bore down on them. Ash barrier! Came Ranjiku's furious voice, and a sphere of ash surrounded the two of them. The blades then collided with the ash wall, and while most of them broke, a few pierced through. Seems as though I've won this battle, but let's make sure. Came Ryunaki's cold voice, then shot a smog of poison in the air towards the ash ball. Now even if they did survive my million-blade massacre, when they come out they'll have to face my poison, Ryunaki thought to himself as he waited for them to emerge. The ash ball Yuria had a sword running through his left leg, pinning him to the floor. Ranjiku was also injured with a shallow cut on her right arm. Soag, how long can you hold this ash barrier? Yuria asked as he sliced the blade apart using his seal Schneider. I can hold it for a while. Why? Ranjiku told him while she began treating his wound. Do you think you could reinforce it? Asked the young Quincy. Just what are you up to, Ishida? Ranjiku asked, folding her arms under Well, during the earlier fight before he unleashed his slug baby on us, I set up 5 springers. Yuria said, finally explaining his plan. Springer? I think I heard of that from Renji. Wait, you mean that super destructive flashy technique that requires you to trap your enemy? Are you crazy? And on top of that you set up 5 of them. You'll kill us all! Ranjiku shouted as she shook him back and forth by his shirt. Come to think of it, I barely saw you move. When did you exactly have time to set your super destructive flashy technique? Ranjiku asked as she let go of his shirt. I've been training my speed and my body ever since the end of the Winter War. It's to the point now that I move so fast it seems like I'm standing still. Yuryu explained with a proud smirk. So why don't we just outrun the blast? Ranjiku asked in a childish manner. Because the first springer I set up, it covers the entire floor. Then from there I set up the rest in a smaller formation. Yuryu told his childish partner. You are a dumbass, she said, narrowing her eyes at him. From what I could see before you put the ash barrier around us, we're within 2 of the blasts. All you have to strengthen the barrier, and I'll reinforce it with my spirit energy. Yuryu said with a smile, knowing that even that might not save them. Alright, let's do it, Ishida. Ranjiku said, returning his smile. Back in Chamber 9, a huge explosion rocked the entire arena, bringing everyone to their knees. Ranjiku, her spirit energy, as Toshiro thought with a worried glance. Masaki appeared next to him, holding a completely white sword in her right hand, and a completely black sword in her left hand. The black and white aura that swirled around her felt both good and evil at the same time. She was surprised when she felt Masaki unseal her Zanpakuto, but like any other Y fighter, she underestimated her. Sorry, hun, but even with your Shurikai and his Bankai, you still won't beat me. Minami teased as she elongated her ash claws. That's so? Then why don't we try his Bankai and my Bankai? She yelled. Then she became enveloped in a black and white sphere of Ryatsu. Well, Ms. Masaki is probably as stronger as Ichigo, if not stronger, Toshiro said in amazement. The demon that descends into the 9 hells will damn you, and the angel that transcends above the heavens will bless us all, said Masaki as her voice came from every direction. Minami was frozen with fear. She didn't want to die, but at the same time she felt as though dying would free her from her own hell. Then the swirling spear of light finally vanished, and in its place was a transformed Masaki Kurosaki. The sword that she held in her right hand was now ignited in white flames. Her right eye was now white with a black crossed pupil, and a white angel's wing head from the right side of her back, while the sword in her left hand was now surrounded in black flames, with her left eye now black with a white crossed pupil, and a black devil's wing from her left backside. Sentetsu Sensei Jinsaku. Then Masaki flash stepped behind Minami, and the 2 women stood with their backs to each other. A second later, blood spewed from numerous slash wounds on Minami's body. Her dark ash armor faded and she fell to the ground. Masaki returned to normal and began to walk back to her younger partner, seemingly unaware of the danger behind her. You bitch! Minami screamed as she ran at Masaki's back with her blade raised. All of her wounds were gone, the only indication that she was cut were her torn clothing. Masaki didn't even turn around or so much as acknowledge the rejuvenated espada. Halfway to her target, blood spewed from Minami's body again from numerous cuts across her body. Toshiro stood in shock as he was a step or 2 away from killing the girl. What? Again, but this time she didn't even move or draw her sword. Is she really that fast, or have I gotten slow? No, it's something else, Minami thought as she fell back to the floor. The thing about my Bankai, little one, is that one sword is meant for death while the other is for life. So every cut I inflicted with my black sword were healed by the flames of the white one. Now here's where it gets tricky. Notice anything different about your body? Masaki asked as she glanced at the young girl. Upon closer inspection of her wounds, Minami could see tiny black and white flames in them. She tried to blow them out, but they wouldn't go away. As long as those flames are there, your wounds will keep healing, then reopening. Eventually you'll die from blood loss or you'll kill yourself. Either way is fine with me, Masaki told her with a faint smile. Then she and Toshiro retrieved Rukia, and left a battered Minami in tears as her cuts had reopened for a 3rd time. Chamber 7. Sighs, this is so boring, Kahn said as he leaned against the arena wall. Sighs that it is my friend, Hueco said for his spot next to Kahn. Flashback. Kahn walked into the arena looking around for his opponent until someone called his name. Kahn? What are you doing here? Asked a confused Karen a little ways to his right. I could ask you the same thing, he told her, then noticed the tunnel that they had went through. Oh, now I get it, so tunnels 6 and 7 connects to this one room. Kahn said out loud. Well, if we're here, then where are our opponents? Yuichiro said from atop Kahn's shoulders. Will you get off of me, you pink-haired twit? The young boy yelled, then was silenced by a blow to the head by Yuichiro's zanpakuto sheath. Oh, quiet down, catnip, they're here. Yuichiro told him as Hueco and Tsuko appeared in the center of the arena. A man, 2 girls, and a little boy. On top of that, they don't even look like much. Hueco said unenthusiastically. Who the hell are you calling little, you four-eyed twerp? Kahn yelled from his place on the ground, then suddenly Hueco was in front of him. Damn, he's fast. Kahn thought as he readied himself for Hueco's assault. I'm not gonna even get involved, so Tsuko, you go ahead and take care of these 3. The goggle-framed boy said as he leaned up against the wall to watch his sister. Kahn released a deep breath, then leaned up against the wall next to the other young boy. You aren't gonna help your girlfriends? Hueco asked as the girls began fighting. Nah, I don't like to fight girls, especially cute ones. Besides, if I were to enter the fight, then so would you, and Karen and Yachi don't need any extra trouble. Kahn replied with a smirk as they watched the girls fight. Flashback end. 20 minutes of exchanging blows and no one had gotten a single scratch. The 2 boys were beyond bored now, then suddenly the air changed. Their attention was drawn to Karen as her spirit energy started to increase. Flash and crackle, Ayuki! A bolt of lightning struck Karen and she was gone. What the hell, where did she go? Oh damn it, Ichigo is gonna kick my ass for sure this time, cried Kahn, but stopped when a scream echoed throughout the arena. Karen had reappeared, but now she was surrounded by lightning, and her zanpakuto had changed into 2 identical sais that she held in each hand. It wasn't her that the boys heard screaming though. Karen had managed to leave a cut on Tsuko's left cheek. Wow, Strawberry Boy's little sister is so strong. I wonder if Kenny would have fun fighting her. Yuichiro said in amazement. Well, since we're getting serious, all waves, rise now and become my shield. Lightning, strike now and become my blade. Sojo no Kodawari. Tsuko pointed her sword at Karen and Yuichiro, then shot a wave of black water towards them. Too bad for you, my Ayuki is a lightning-based zanpakuto, Karen said and charged towards the shorter girl. As soon as she was about to deflect the wave of water, dark spears of lightning shot out and stabbed her. Should I guess it's time for me to jump in? Kahn flash stepped and saved Karen from a lethal blow to the heart. When he turned around, Hueco was standing next to Tsuko with his sword drawn. Flower Wind Rage and Flower God Roar. Heavenly Wind Rage and Heavenly Demon Sneer, Hueco called out, then released his Shurikai. Roar with pride, Reito no Rayon. Kahn recited, then the entire left side of his body became encased in white paladin's lion armor. Gripping his white pistol, the young one prepared himself for battle. That's an interesting look you got there, Hueco said with a cheeky grin. Yeah, I kinda modeled it after I saw Ms. Masaki's Bankai that one time. But I can assure you our powers are nothing alike, Kahn said, and both boys disappeared. Next, small flashes of light and gunshots rang throughout the arena. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Firestyle Tarot for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.